Good. And one. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you. And as always, I'm here with my brother from another mother, Australia's premier wellness expert. He is the Sultan of Strength, Dr. Damien Kristof. How are you, brother?
Hello, Pearcey. Good morning, mate. It's great to be joining you again for yet another record-breaking longevity podcast. And we've got a great chat today. And I'm grateful to you because you read stuff when you're sitting on a plane, and you managed to read an article that's led us to this interview. So thank you.
It's one of those divine interventions. I was doing a talk. I've been doing talks for the retirement living sector recently and meeting lots of great people and learning lots of great stuff. And we are about to interview our second Finnish guest on 100 Not Out. Our first Finnish guest we met in Ikaria. Our second Finnish guest is Tuire Karaharju-Huisman. Geez, that's a good pronunciation. And Tuire is here to talk all things Strengthspan, a new word for our listeners, no doubt, Strengthspan and positive aging. Tuire is a highly experienced physiotherapist and exercise physiologist whose career has spanned multiple continents and diverse areas of research and clinical practice. Tuire, as I said, is originally from Finland. She now lives in Melbourne, in Damo's neck of the woods. Tuire has spent over a decade as an academic lecturer and today works as the research lead with Her Australia, a company providing strength and balance, easy access equipment for everyone. Tuire has put together an awesome graphic, which I found on LinkedIn, which is all around Strengthspan versus Healthspan versus Lifespan. So much to talk about today. Tuire, welcome to 100 Not Out.
Thank you so much. Thanks for reaching out. And it's a pleasure to be here to share our mission again, to talk about what goodness we can gain with a bit of strength training.
Well, Tuire, first things first, I love your enthusiasm. I feel like I'm talking to a mirror when I talk to you because you love what you do, and you love what you do so much that you created a graphic, which is difficult to talk about on a podcast, that I first saw on LinkedIn when so many people in the longevity space are talking about lifespan and health span, which I'm just going to say, it feels like a bit of a wank because it's talking about quantity in life and quality of life, which we've been talking about for years. But you came across some research which originated in Britain in 2024, bringing in the word Strengthspan. And Damo and I love this because we're often saying that movement is one of the most essential ingredients to longevity, and strength and being strong often gets overlooked. Can you just begin the process here on where you came to be so enamored with Strengthspan and being vital in your older years?
Look, I think as being a lecturer of exercise physiology, like we do, the main thing of exercise physiology, a big part of it is strength training. So we really were educating about the chronic disease management. And we knew then that chronic disease management, strength training is essential for that. So whether we talk about cardiovascular disease or metabolic health or diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, which is really the disease that's taken over the working people. We work, we sit too long, we don't exercise enough. And just with diabetes, our big thing was saying that if you do strength training, you can drop your glucose in 48 hours. So with the research is really going through, we get so much more information about what the benefits of strength training and really going to a deep levels of what we know. So I think strength training really, like, there is these things that people think that strength training is for pure muscle only. You go to gym to lose weight, you build the muscle without understanding the health component. And to me, the big one was, obviously the diabetes management. But then there were all these articles by my people at my own research, Mare Fetaron-Singh, who already in 1990s in Boston did the study of strength training of people aged between 90 and 100. And I remember in one of the talks, she was saying how everybody was so fearful of her doing the study and the people would be too frail, but she trusted herself. And what she found out was this increase in health. So since 1990, she's continued on this path of strength training and has multiple research studies, with the newest ones, one of the new favorites. She's part of a study that was published on 1st of January this year. So starting the year where you really look at the global consensus about exercise and strength training. So these sort of things combined, always have been believing in strength training and trying to, toot the horn for muscles as in a way of providing health. Then another friend of mine, Jackson 5, has this amazing newsletter. And Jackson is the one who really brought this article to my attention about Strengthspan. And then really talks about, rather than Healthspan, often we talk about the older years and, lengthening and different exercise. But with the Strengthspan, we really sort of focus on how strength training can benefit. But that article also mentioned that it's not just the older years, but we really should be sort of, when we're children, we should be active and creating good manners and looking at the strength and climbing trees is what I'm a bit concerned now about, because kids are no longer climb trees. So the future is going to be another talk that you really like, where we talk about the future generations. But then sort of building the reserve as children and playing and doing everything. Then once we are in the older years, so working ages, 30, 20 to 40, maintaining that strength. But once we really, because sarcopenia starts hitting around our 30s, so really once we get to the 50s, really starting to focus on the strength training part. And there was another great article, I think December 2023 initially published, but now discussed again, where they talked about how really we have to move on from seeing as people who run a lot to be the healthiest, to really understanding the power that strength training really can provide to us. And the older we go, we talk about sarcopenia and osteoporosis, strength training is really a key to that. Well, was this too long intro, maybe? Sorry.
I'm loving I've got so many things going through my head, and I didn't want to take my hand away and then start writing notes because then we'll lose my train of thought. So I'm just going to start with a few things. First of all, the word sarcopenia, I'm just going to take that back for the listeners because there were some people that don't understand that. That's essentially the maintenance of the same weight, but it's the loss of muscle and replacement of the muscle tissue space with fat. So like a Wagyu cow or a Wagyu beef, it's kind of like that in your muscles. If you can imagine that your glute muscles or your hamstrings or your biceps, they look about the same, but they lose muscle fibers, and those muscle fibers are replaced in terms of their space and weight with fat. And so it might taste good, but we're not eating humans. It just isn't good for us. And it's the early signs of insulin resistance, I suppose you could say, and which then, of course, will lead to diabetes. And then obviously all the other types of diseases that can go along with that. So as you get weaker, you're going to increase your risk of fracture and falls, et cetera, et cetera. But the key thing is the strength training prevents a lot of this. And so does healthy diet. So this is where Tuire's gone deep in with that one word, and it summarizes all of those things. So one word summarizes all of what I've just said. Sarcopenia summarizes all of that. So you hear that word more and more because it's becoming more and more popular, and particularly in our age group and demographic listening to this podcast, we're very aware of that. The other thing that's really important, I think, to understand, and where Tuire was talking about things here, is that even though if we look at statistics, physical inactivity was responsible for 10 to 20% of disease burden for Australia. 19% is for diabetes, and then there's bowel cancer and dementia and breast cancer. I would also say that a lot of the diseases that are outside of the physical inactivity healthcare burden could also be related to and tied to physical inactivity. So diabetes, for example, is very much tied to a physical underactive life, and so is weight gain, and then cancers and heart disease and so on. So physical activity becomes so important. But I think where I wanted to get to answer, to just bring it back was there's going to be people that are listening to this, Tuire, that aren't strong. They didn't get strong as children, and they've got children or grandchildren that aren't strong and didn't get strong as children. And then so they get to 20 and 30, and it's at that point in their life that they're supposed to be kind of, being strong, not necessarily trying to chase strength. But is it ever too late? At the end of the article, you actually say yesterday was the best time to start, and it's never too late to start. So just get going, just start it. But is it too late to build strength for anybody?
It's never too late. It's never too late. And the whole thing is like with strength training, we do build reserves. So what we do, so it's the whole thing of eating protein, and again, these are these things we talk a lot in public. We talk about protein intake. Finally, not time we talk about this.
I know, right?
So the protein intake and the strength training, but it's never too late. And you read these stories about these people who they go to retirement villages, or they have an injury or something happens, and they've never done strength training in their life, and then they start in their 70s, and it's an amazing increase what they do. So it's never too late. However, the earlier you start, the better. So it doesn't matter. You can start when you're 105. That's okay. I mean, I think I've made amazing stories when I work with my clients. And I think one of the best ones is I was in one of the sites, had a restaurant underneath, and there was this bunch of these 80-year-olds around the table, and they all had their smartphones, and they were swiping and showing and taking selfies and everything else. And I was wondering, oh my goodness, what's the story behind this group? And it was one of their 80th birthday. So it's also the social aspect of starting to exercise. You find your friends, and if you're healthy, you can live active life for longer, and then you can take your selfies with your 80-year-old or 100-year-old mates, which is completely okay. But it's definitely it's never too late to start. But I think it's important to understand that it's good to start. I think and we shouldn't, I think even look, when I did my physio degree, I admit I did my first exercise class for World War II veterans. I mean, being in Finland 30 years ago, there was a lot of veterans with our really friendly neighbours, so we had an ongoing war for a long time. And I went there preparing for some simple exercises, and until they said to me, "Hey, chick, can we do something a bit harder? Like, this is a bit boring." I was like, "Sorry." So I was put on my spot very, very quickly, and sort of, I had to learn it the hard way. And at the same time, now my mum just moved to a care facility, and I got the activities list, and they straight away light chair-based exercise, and I was like, "Come on, people!"
Yeah.
Who walks up and down stairs is now doing light chair-based exercise. So we have to believe in people, and I think as long as we can as long as we can exercise, we have to keep exercising. Coming back to your one thing, Damien, you talked about the fact that the muscle is just replaced by fat, so it may become Wagyu beef, which is great, but it's not. The one thing that we don't understand is that way before we lose muscle strength and muscle mass, we actually will lose muscle power. And muscle power is the one that allows us to do stuff. Muscle power is the one that allows us to get up from a chair, to walk upstairs. And muscle power is the one that we lose first. Even before we realize that, hey, my muscles are gone. Oh, I look like, they look different. You've already lost the power. So that's why there's these little silent factors that are going through. And that's why we try to educate people. And again, the word of sarcopenia. Sorry, Marcus, I'm just taking over because like Damien,
this is great. This is great.
Sarcopenia, the thing is, we all know osteoporosis. Osteoporosis, we talk about it. We talk about Osteoporosis Australia. We have ads on TV. We don't yet talk about sarcopenia. I went to a frailty conference last year, and then we talked about jargon, and we talked how sarcopenia is a jargon word. But one day, jargon will become everyday language. And osteoporosis in the 60s was the jargon. People didn't know about. I have, in my bookshelf, I have an article, I have a book of abstracts from 1960s from a conference where we started talking about osteoporosis. And still in the 80s, then osteoporosis, suddenly we talked about it. Like, wow, there's this thing. So it took some time. I was in Singapore last year in May. I took a taxi, and guess what was advertised on the radio? In Singapore, in a taxi, I heard the word sarcopenia. They were advertising protein shakes or whatever they were advertising. But the thing was that they mentioned sarcopenia. And if we don't talk about it, we don't believe in it. The jargon never becomes a normal word, but also it never becomes about practices. Another clinical story, a friend of mine, 65, went to see the GP saying, "Hi, I'm retired, I'm 65. They did talk about DEXA, and they did talk about the bone density. Do you think they talked about sarcopenia and muscle strength? No." So thankfully, she had been brainwashed by me, so she did mention it. But mentioned it, and it's just like, come on, if we don't have our GPs, there is some amazing GPs that do this, and there's great GPs who do that. But we need to get our professionals that people rely on, that they trust, to understanding the importance of muscle health. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that, Tuire. I love the idea that there's little clinical signs that we get clues from. Our body's telling us all the time, whether it's fatigue, aches and pains, or you now can't open the Vegemite jar. There's a few things that your body's telling you in terms of muscle power. If you struggle, if you got to get a run up so you can get out of bed, if you got to like rock backwards and forwards so you can actually hoist yourself up, or you roll out of bed onto your knees and then you pull yourself up. These are, signs. Maybe it's that's a down the track kind of sign, but you definitely, if you're waking up and you're not feeling vital, then consider your muscle power. I love that. That's a beautiful little clinical tip, like a little thing that everybody can kind of consider. Have I lost my muscle power? What a great thing to be considerate of. In chiropractic, Tuire, you might know that we believe this wholeheartedly, that the body has the ability to heal itself. So we have this thing that we call innate intelligence. It's for more than 120 years been jargon. And when they started talking about the immune system, they used the word innate immune system. In other words, it's not necessarily learned. It's something that's inbuilt within us, and it's an intelligence. So the innate component of the immune system is an intelligent function within the immune system that it never had to learn. It just came with the manual. And so the innate intelligence of the body is to continue to heal. So I love when you refer to the ability of the body to grow and to improve strength and to avoid sarcopenia and to, I'm going to say, reverse the aging process, so to speak, by exercising and improving your strength span. That speaks to innate intelligence for me. It speaks to enabling the body to heal itself, which I love. And, if people can move past the words that underpin philosophy and then use those words that underpin philosophy, which we could call jargon, and then reinstate it into the language of the conversation that we're now having, but also with their patients, or if you're a patient, ask your doctor about these words that you could consider to be jargon, but actually really do point to the fact of the things that we need to be mindful of to stay healthy and live well. I think we'd all be better off. And so I'm grateful for what you brought up there.
I have a little simple term. I use a different term for that. I call it the reserve bank of health. I have because I often talk to different people and I have a few slides and so I call it the reserve bank of health. So what I tell to people is basically, you eat protein, like we eat our eggs and we have our dairy and everything else, and we eat our meat, we eat the protein. And the protein then basically allows us to train our muscles, and then our muscles become reserve bank of the protein.
Love it.
Percent of the protein is stored in your large muscles. So the larger the muscle, the better. So therefore, our quads, so our thigh muscles and our glutes, our back. So we look about lats and butts and legs. These are the big muscles. So you eat the protein. The protein then allows the muscles to grow. Then the protein gets stored in those big muscles. And the big muscles then become your reserve bank of health. So every time when you get sealed, so if we think about the function of protein, protein's role is, probably one of the big things that builds your cells. Every time, whether your cells is, hearing a tissue of whatever cells you have, protein is there to build them. So when you get ill, you must have extra protein to build new cells to recover from the illness. And that's when we need into reserve bank. So I have another little analogy about these banks and that I use in my slides. And I often talk, you talk about people strength training and gyms, and they go, oh, no, it's not for me. I go for a walk and I do gardening. And, it's great. I'm not saying walking is bad, but I'm talking about this whole what matters the most for your health. And we know that strength training matters more when you are older. Therefore, if you have these people who say, oh, no, gym is not for me, I already exercise, that's like a piggy bank. When we were kids, I don't know if kids these days have piggy banks, but, our banks used to give you a little pig and you put a coin there.
Yeah.
So let's see, that could be sort of like, I do exercise, I do stuff, that's your piggy bank. So then we think like, okay, but then you realize, okay, I'm going to join the gym. And then you might do a bit of strength training and you might get the little dumbbells and you do your 55 million sets. And that's like opening a bank account. You're taking your piggy bank and you go to the bank and say, hello, I want to open an account. I want to get a bit more serious about my saving. I've had my money stashed under the doom mattress and I have my piggy bank and I'm now serious about this. I join the gym. You don't engage anyone because you think that, yeah, I can doing this. And then, one day you want to invest the money. You actually want to make sure that the time you spend at the gym matters. So actually start following a gym, you get a trainer, you get an exercise physiologist or PT at least, but you really say, okay, how can I do this the best? That's sort of like going into your stock market. So then you start looking in your protein intake, and then you can really do your right strength training. Let's say if you want to avoid sarcopenia, 3 sets, 8 reps, big weights. So understanding that it's okay to have big weights, that's all right. And then you're in the stock market, and then you can see your stocks going up, because then one day you have the stock drop. Like we have global financial crisis, that could be a hospital period, it could be your illness at home, it could be overuse injury, a trip at home. But sometime when it drops, you can't go to the gym. You can afford to have that drop because you're at such a high level, and then you can return to it. And that's one of the big things. And I found it older people, as soon as they give you a walk or something happens, we think, okay, that's it. Nothing's going to happen anymore. It's never too late. And the more you engage and the better you do your training, the better the outcome, the better are the health benefits. I mean, all of us and many other people, we talk about exercise as medicine. Exercise can be the magic pill that can really save you. One of my clients wrote to another newsletter, not this article, but another one. The title, he gave it the article. He wrote the whole article. I didn't edit a word, and he called the title, Exercise is the answer. Now, what is your problem? And that is the perfect solution from a GP saying like, okay, this is how we go. I'm not going to give you, buckets of pills and say, take all of these. I'm giving you one pill. Side effects could be a bit of sweating, a bit of red face, a bit of discomfort, a bit of DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, but this is the one thing that can give you a solution for so many diseases in once, and you just have to do it every now and then. So they're my little analogies that I use when I talk to people, because it can be difficult, and I think, but it's actually quite simple when you think about it. It's just a Reserve Bank of Health, and that's it. That's it.
I love it. Tuire, there's so much gold and wisdom in here. You've just mentioned some great analogies around the Reserve Bank and the piggy bank and all the rest of it. And you also made it sound, for want of a better term, simple. Now, I know there's people listening, and you speak, Damien speaks, I speak. We would have spoken to billions of people, the three of us combined. I've also had a quiz running for years where people would rate their areas of life out of 10, movement being one of them. And in their score, I then have a field of saying what's missing. And in relation to movement, it is overwhelming to me how overwhelming it is that the common response is not motivated, or I don't have time. These are the two big limiting beliefs, let's call it, missing ingredients. We are on this podcast obviously attempting to inspire people to find the motive to move well in order to age well. Let's not talk about time, because I think everyone knows we've all got 24 hours in a day, but motive. I'm sure in your years, you have observed many people that just don't feel motivated despite your enthusiasm and energy. What do you think is required for people that are listening to this going, oh, I know I should, but I just don't think I can? Like, where do you advise people go from there? Because that is the most common form of resistance when we talk about movement.
I think that is the hardest question. And that's every time when you have allied health. I mean, in facilities, it's a time bonus, but motivation and keeping people going. I used to work with a really great man of exercise science called Steve Selig. Steve Selig originally hired me. Steve used to run this exercise class of people with cardiac disease. And always after the class, they would have coffee. So they would have coffee and cake. And the study went on, and they became friends. And then after the study finished, I remember Steve was saying that they started, the people in the group saying, can we still come and can we still have coffee? Because they made the social bond. So that's a big thing. And I think if you're a bit hesitant, I think finding the friendly gym and, which can be difficult, but also maybe going with a friend is another one. Is really trying to find a friend who comes with you. And I think it's also for gyms to find the right gym for you. I mean, gyms can be intimidating and gyms can be stinky. And, we have our pet faves. Like my pet hate is the one when people drop their weights and so boom, when the whole house explodes when they drop it. Then I've read in one email, it's like people who drop it, they hate the people who think about it. So it's like, you got to find your own gym. And I think a lot of gyms are becoming a lot more accommodating and they really try to find. But the other way is going to try to find an exercise physiologist, because they often have their own clinics and then you can start privately. If you're intimidated by everyone, you don't know quite to either engage a personal trainer or an exercise physiologist. Engage someone to show you how to do it properly and maybe start with a private clinic. So you can really start there and say, look, I don't feel comfortable going there and something is going on. But I know, like, for example, my own gym is really, really accommodating. And I know one of the PTs in my gym was just chosen, I think, the PT of Australia or at least Victoria. And all the clients that he invited were from different parts. So we talk about disabilities, we talk about chronic diseases, we talk about everything else. And really trying to create a space where everybody is welcome. So, like, I love going to the gym, and I know the local allied health professionals bring their clients there as well, and everybody's different. So you will then have your footy players, and then you have the people with carers coming in at the same time, and then also offering different classes and offering a group. And some people want to be part of a group. I think there's nothing worse than training with 60 people together. I think it's not for me. So I'd rather go on my own, but people are different. And I think you need to figure out what are your motivators and how to, but I think really looking for a buddy or looking for a professional who can help you to get started. I think that's a good starting point, but the motivation is hard. And look, I used to go to another gym and I often yawn when I go there. And, one of the trainers, you are yawning. It's like, well, I'm here yawning. I'm not on my sofa yawning. So I don't think this is anything wrong considering how tired I am. Ignoring the fact that I'm here now and doing the stuff and doing something for my health. So, I think, people are different, but I think trying to find get good music. Look, I often do that. I just, if I'm writing something, I put my pods on and I go for a walk and I do training, then I can get, it's motivating,
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Now, off air, you and I chatted. You've designed this beautiful graphic, and Marcus and I love it very much.
We'll pop it in the show notes.
With your permission, we'll pop it in the show notes and probably share it on our LinkedIn. We'll actually probably share the link to your article on LinkedIn, which I think would be the best way to go, so people can see this article and your graphic. I took exception to this graphic because Tuire,
to one part of it, not the whole graphic, Damo, to one small piece of the graphic.
Let's not take this out of context. That's true. It's just one part. I noticed that you had lifespan, which essentially just means, people are going to live for as long as they're going to live and they're going to die. And then there's Healthspan. People are going to live as long as they're going to live. Plus, if you're healthy and you play golf, then you'll live a reasonably long time. But if you want to live a longer time, then we call that Strengthspan. You can live a long time. And you'll die. But if you play tennis, essentially you're going to live longer than if you play golf. And I took exception to that because I play golf now, but I do agree with you. Here's the thing. In my golf club, I see a lot of people, especially the men, they drink after golf. Often they've had a very good life. They've never missed a meal. Most of them wouldn't have fasted. Many of them probably have over-consumed food and under-exercised. And as a result, they feel that the way in which they can live a long time and to maintain some social engagement is to play golf for a little bit of their day and then socialize with some alcohol and lots of food later on. And they get old really fast. And I think the point that you're making with your graphic, and we've spoke about this off air, which we both agree on, is that regardless of the sport that you choose to enjoy as part of your strength span, you've still got to stay strong in order to play it. So you can play tennis if you like, and you hang somewhere in the back in the service line, the back of the court, and do some little lobs, and you'll never get a volley, and you don't run for the ball, you're going to die as quickly as a golfer who just drinks and eats after 9 holes. The point being, you've got to stay strong in your sport, and I think that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Absolutely. And look, it was the dropping of the sports was only to actually get some more time, and but I wanted to keep the reason why, because I need the balance there, so you can see that the golfer was replaced by the balance guy, which was yogi, because balance exercise is becoming even more important. Now I just run out of space. I was talking to this graphic guy, I said too many things. So I had to drop golf, and I think golf is an interesting one. It really means any sport. That's the whole idea, staying active. But I think I added the balance there, because balance exercises are vital. And I think balance exercises are interesting in a way that in the past, people really saw that resi care and older adults physio was only balance exercises. Until there was this glorious study called Sunbeam, which was done by Jenny Hewitt.
Jenny 100 Not Out alumni. We've interviewed Jenny before.
Well, I was in a conference, I remember we were in a conference, it was force prevention conference in Pearce, where that sort of a topic came up. And there was one of the key research of force prevention when we talked about exercise. And then he only mentioned balance. And then this one person crossed it over and put strength and balance. So the Sunbeam study really was the one that really verified the fact that strength and balance together. Because Jenny was a sports physio before. And then she started doing prescriptive exercises of strength and balance for frailer ones. In the study, the average age was 87, and they were frailer. Even with people with cognitive decline were included in the study, which is a separate paper as part of that.
Wow.
A lot more. But back to the sport. I think golfing, look, I once when I was studying physio, this is more than 30 years ago, and I did an internship in a major US hospital. And there I was a physio student, and a huge amount of people who were golfers who came in. And the image then, 30 plus years ago, was like golfing was the sport to retire. And then you have these people who often, they worked all their lives and they worked really hard. They haven't done sport. Golf courses are not flat. So then you go up and down, there's valleys everywhere. So consequently, what is the number one? Plantar fasciitis. Because you haven't walked, you've been sitting all your life and driving a car. So then you start walking suddenly in an uneven surface, up and down, plantar fasciitis. And the other one was, of course, shoulder injuries. And so even golf comes with injuries. So we can't think, and golf is a hard sport, and we think about rotation. It is great for you because you have to have core strength and you have to have your core activity and everything else. And whereas tennis, the benefit of tennis compared to golf is the impact. And if we look at the original osteoporosis studies, a lot of them are done with tennis players because we talk about handedness. Because also with the wooden rackets, especially, you just use one hand. And tennis players were the original ones for osteoporosis to verify bone density. Because in the racket hand, you always have better density because of the impact sport you have.
Oh, wow.
So that's sort of where we go with the sport, but it doesn't matter what the sport is. And it's also both the one you mentioned, it is social activity, which is we can't take away. If we think about aging well, and we think about positive aging, which is part of your title of your podcast as well, positive aging is having friends. This is the thing, and both. So golf, you mentioned going for drinks after with your friends. In tennis, they do the same thing. It's a great competition. It is a social. You belong to something. And again, when we talked about the hinders of starting to exercise, that's another one. If you join a club, you'll meet people. And look, eating cake and drinking, as long as it's in moderation, I don't see a point. And people often are so concerned when you get older about weight. Older adults, some more like to be underweight than overweight. And like being underweight, to me, is a lot bigger issue, because also if you're slightly over, you get good impact forces, and cake is full of protein. Not saying let them eat cake. I'm not French royal here by saying let them eat cake. Listen, but I think we need to have a balance. One beer after golf or one piece of cake with coffee, it's okay. Or glass of champagne, I don't care. You're having it with your friends, as long as everything is in moderation. the social aspect is so important as part of that as well. So I think, it's okay in moderation, did you agree, Damien?
Yeah, I 100%. I 100% agree. I totally agree. I think the key point though is it's great to play these sports, but if you end up playing, I'm gonna put it in this way: if you end up playing your golf or your tennis according to the decline that's consistent with your age going up, and you expect that you're doing yourself a favor, you're probably not. And what we're saying here is that you should have a lesser expectation of decline as you age. In other words, you should be still trying to play like you were 10 years ago. And in order to achieve that, you've got to stay strong, and you've got to maintain the power. So even the other day, I was trying to change my swing, and a mate of mine said, "What are you trying to change your swing for?" And I said, "Well, I want to get better." He said, "Mate, at our age, we just got to be happy that we're out here." And I'm 52, 52 this year, 51. And I'm like, mate, I want to keep on improving. I want to get better. And so that was another level of motivation for me to, continue to improve things. But the only way that I'm going to improve is if I stay strong. And so when I start to lose distance, I don't want to go, "Oh, I've lost 10 meters or 20 meters or 30 meters. I want to go back and be training in order to maintain that distance." And that's my measure. And I would love if there's some of my golf mates or anybody playing golf out there or anybody playing tennis, try and maintain the speed of your serve, and try and maintain the distances that you're hitting by staying strong. These are great markers that you'll measure all the time.
And the thing is, if you're strong, you can change your technique.
Yeah.
Remember, look, my dad was a surgeon, and when he started playing, so his spine was naturally fused after operating for 15 hours on a patient.
Yes.
So the golf pro came up with a different technique. So look, when you're swinging, apologies for all the golf pros out there, but my understanding as a minimal biomechanics, less golf done, is either you rotate or you switch your center of pressure between the things. And a lot of the key players, if I understand correctly, they have a combination of both. So you're shifting a center of mass plus you're rotating. So therefore, if you can't rotate anymore, then you use more of the shift. So get a good coach and do that. But the thing is, you need to preserve your body as well. It doesn't matter if you're older. Today, I read an article just before about I was in one of the newspapers about the level of injuries. Like in Australia and this year, Australian Open and everywhere else, if you play too hard, your body will collapse. And this year, it is the athletes as well. So the story was about how the tennis players this year have had way more injuries than before. And it was relating to the fact that they don't have a break. It's the same as when you get older. Athletes need the same thing. You need to build your strength. You need to have the right technique and everything else. But what you should not do is give up on the sport just because of that. Then, get in touch with the coach and say, how can we do this differently? What would I do differently if I do this and that injury? And I think it's good you always have to respect your injury, but don't let it guide your world. And some injuries cannot be healed, but then many of the injuries with proper physio and tweaking the technique. It's the same as young players. They end up with overuse injuries because they don't have the right technique. And then once they fix that, so I think when you get older as well, you can look into that as well. It's like, okay, how could I twitch this? I have these. Okay, I'll do my proper rehab. And Mark is waving. Are we already out of time? Okay, I'm going to stop talking and let you say.
Oh, that's all right, Tori. Yeah, we are. But just finish what you wanted to say there, and then we'll wrap. That's okay.
Just, if you have an injury, treat the injury. Try to fix your style, but don't be pushed down. It's the same if you have older people, if you have a fall, okay, fine, you have a fall. Let's move on. If you've had a surgery, you have a hip replacement, you have whatever surgery, don't stop. If it's a planned surgery, do your prehab, bulk up before, learn how to use, if you need crutches, learn how to use them before. It's the balance between prehab and rehab. And really try and be your strongest you can and don't give up if you have a setback. We all have setbacks and we just have to figure out to get on top.
Oh, Tora, you have been a font of knowledge. And I think also this has been a very reaffirming episode for us. This is episode 617. We've been doing this for 12 years. And every time we have someone on that reaffirms the importance of movement, of strength, but also of socializing. I think that question that we asked you around motive, and you brought in the social elements to this as well. I think that's why Damo loves his golf so much. He's not doing it alone. He's doing it with others. I think some of the can-do approaches that you suggested in this episode, Tuire, so vital for our listeners. So we thank you so much, Tuire Karaharju-Huisman, for joining us on 100 Not Out.
Very good.
It has been a joy to have you. And Tuire, as we like to wish all of our guests, may the rest of your life, Tuire, be the best of your life. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Damo, that was awesome. For everyone that wants to learn more on Tuire, you can go to Her Australia. That's HURaustralia.com.au. So that is where Tuire weaves her magic. Now, Tuire also mentioned Jenny Hewitt and the Sunbeam study. We interviewed Jenny on episode 273. We will link to that in the show notes as well. We mentioned at the top of the show, Tuire is the second Finnish person to feature on 100 Not Out. The first we met in Ikaria. Now, I don't know if you would come to Ikaria and Sardinia just to meet someone from Finland, but it's a chance. We are in Ikaria this year, August 22 to 31, and Sardinia, September 2 to 11. If you would like to join us in one or both of the European Blue Zones, all the details at 100notout.com. Damo, you are the Sultan of Strength. Thank you for your wisdom as always. And people can always find you at vitalifestyles.com or damienkristof.com. Anything to add before we wrap?
Yes, mate. I love that. I think that there's so many great messages in there. You summed it up, and I think that a lot of people could re-listen to that. And I'm thinking of people as this podcast we're recording. I'm thinking of people that could be listening to this, and I don't like being shooted on, but I'm going to say there's a lot of people that should listen to this. It's a really great episode to share with your mates, share with your friends, share with family that have tended towards sarcopenia or might be tending towards strength loss, power loss. Work on it. And like Tuire says, it's never too late. And yesterday was the best time to start this. So get going.
Love it, love it, love it. Until next week, our wonderful listeners, thank you for joining us, and continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Bye for now.